This is it. After years I've been rolled up within an inch of my life, I'm free!
Receipts have a mind of their own. Go paperless and manage your travel expenses online with My Taxi Business. Make the smarter choice at mytaxi.com.
Welcome into Sportsmemo's Betting Podcast, the Saturday look-ahead college basketball edition with Robbie Veno. Rob, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
I am doing good today, Friday afternoon here, Drew. Lots of basketball last couple of days, boy, and still a couple of more. And tournament selection, and next thing you know, this whole thing will be over. It goes by so quick.
It does go by really quick, man. It's almost like you can't get your head up. There's so many games on, so much to watch right now. We're watching Auburn, South Carolina at the finish here. South Carolina down 10 as we talk. We got that game set up for the last just to make sure it is exactly going to happen tomorrow in the SEC. But first off, we got 4 games slated already happening as we're talking. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock Eastern time on Friday night for Robbie and myself. But we'll talk these Saturday games, try to get the listeners out in front of some of these line moves, Robbie. We got the Big Ten semifinal, Wisconsin versus Michigan State. By Ken Palm's numbers, he has Michigan State winning 67-63. That would be a total of 130 with Michigan State as -4 favorites. Would you have any interest in getting involved with Sparty in Wisconsin if those are the numbers?
Yeah, my power ratings show Michigan State 4.5, so pretty much in line with what Ken Palm is thinking there. Wisconsin, of course, just came off a 4-point win over Nebraska. Boy, Drew, just real quick side note, the way that game ended, Nebraska, after a couple of made free throws by Wisconsin to put them up 7, couple of seconds left, Nebraska dribbles up the floor and chucks up the meaningless 3. Meaningless unless you were on the total of that game, because the three-pointer went down and sent the game over the number, which, believe it or not, has really developed into a trend in these Big Ten games so far. I know we have 2 more here to play tonight, but the underdogs in this Big Ten conference tournament are 6-2 right now, and the over is also 6-2 against the spread. So 2 very, very heavy trends through the first 8 games of the Big Ten tournament. Of course, Purdue, Minnesota later on tonight, and Iowa, Michigan after that. But as for this game, we saw today, Drew, that Ethan Happ had 0 influence on this game for Wisconsin. One of the worst games played by Ethan Happ in his college career. A credit to Nebraska for having only 6.5 players and 6.5 scholarship players, and hanging around for their 3rd game in 3 days, and playing toe-to-toe with all their opposition. Not so sure here what to make of the Wisconsin squad, especially against Michigan State, who welcomed back Nick Ward to the lineup today. For those who didn't see it, Nick Ward, big guy in the middle for Michigan State, returned, which certainly will help them as they go along here through the conference tournament and, of course, into the NCAA tournament. So I think there's a little bit of an advantage there for Michigan State, perhaps not accounted for in the line. I don't think that his presence is built into the point spread here, so you may get a little extra value with Michigan State. As for previous meetings between these two, Michigan State on the road beats Wisconsin 67-59 in their only other meeting this season. So we only have one to gauge it upon. It was a Michigan State road win. I would think they have more ways, especially with Ward back in the lineup, to beat you. They'll have to defend the Wisconsin threes, of course, and see if they can contain Happ the way he was contained today. But for a very, very, very early look, Drew, I would probably look toward Michigan State if the price is 4. I anticipate this game will probably be a little higher come tip-off tomorrow.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I'm with you, Robbie. If this is 4, I'll be on Sparty big time. I could see a 5.5, 6, 6.5. If you had to put a number out, what would you open it at?
Yeah, like I said, my power ratings show 4.5, but I would probably consider Ward a little bit in his second game back and maybe open it 5 and see where they carry it to. But as what happens here, Drew, is as these cards get shortened, day by day. Teams get eliminated and things get shortened. Excuse me for a minute here. I'm just seeing a breaking news for Tyreek Hill under investigation for alleged battery. Okay, that's we're reporting news as we speak here, Drew. But
I saw that too. You were watching the Auburn South Carolina game in this.
Yeah, and that came across. That's wow, that's big news. We'll have to find out about that later. But like I was saying, the cards get shortened each and every day. And tomorrow it'll be even shorter, which means that, generally speaking, guys don't skip games. $50 bettors, $100 bettors, they don't skip games like they would skip on a 40-game card, 50-game card. You know, you might play some, you're not playing them all. But as these cards get shorter, you tend to play a bigger percentage of the card. And for that reason, I think you'll see a lot of money bet on this game, and I think that the favorite will attract the money. So I'm with you. I could very easily see this thing closing 5.5, 6. If I had to guess, I think the closer probably would be around that 6 range.
All right, Robbie. And we also got another one here in the AAC. Big game, Houston versus Memphis. And we were just talking off air. I mean, Memphis is making this home court advantage go a long way. They're finding themselves against Houston, top-rated AAC team, a team some people think can make a Final Four run here. And according to Ken Palm's numbers, they got Houston -9 and 80-71. So that would be -9. 151 as the total, Robbie. If those are the numbers, what are those compared to your power ratings, and how would you look to bet Houston-Memphis here?
Yeah, boy, I don't have anything close to that, Drew. Now, I'm not saying that my power ratings are right, but I'm wondering if Ken Palm, it almost sounds like he treated it as a Houston home game. This is not a neutral floor. This is a home floor. Houston's away power rating against Memphis's home power rating at this point in time, I show Houston 4.5. This game will probably fall somewhere between that 4.5 and that 9, but I would say it's going to fall a lot closer to the number I'm showing here, 4.5, than it would to 9. Houston did blow out UConn today, just about wire to wire, Drew. I mean, I think I remember that game being about 16-14, 18-14, early first half after Houston got off to an 11-0 start. UConn came back and got it close, but from there on out, Houston closed the first half strong. Houston opened the second half strong. UConn could not buy a basket in the second half, and Houston, boy, they just flexed their muscles and ran away and hid. They've been the best team in that conference all season long. There was no change in that today. One of the trends that's developed in the American Athletic Conference tournament so far through 6 games is the under is now 6-1 against the spread. Favorites here are 4-2, but the under is 6-1 after the Memphis Central Florida game went under the number as well. Central Florida today, Drew, as a road favorite, was only in the 2.5 range. I really can't see Houston being 9. If they are, I think there'll be a lot of money on the home team here. Memphis, as you said, we talked about off air, making the most of the home floor. Their star player, Jeremiah Martin, did not even have a big game today for Memphis. So I would think that he has the capability to explode in this one tomorrow. Houston, a very good defensive team, will certainly have their eyes on him and probably look to take him out of the game. But even when attention's paid to him, this is a guy that can certainly put 30 up at a moment's notice. So I think, Houston's been, like I say, the more solid team all season long. But that 9, to me, wow, I just keep coming back to that. I don't think that could possibly be the number in this game. One more time, if it is, you'd have to look the other way. I think you'd have to look at Memphis. As far as earlier season meetings are concerned in this one, Houston wins 90-77 at home, and they don't return to Memphis until now. So it's one game, one result. It was a game where Houston ran with Memphis. It was a 74-possession game and still came out on top by 13. So the Memphis track meet style, I don't know that will be something Houston looks to take away. Houston seemed very comfortable in that element in the first season battle, and they seemed real comfortable in that element today, to tell you the truth. UConn came out fully healthy for the third straight game with Jalen Adams. Dan Hurley, the head coach of Connecticut, seemed as if he had a game plan to go ahead and use tempo to their advantage. They didn't want to play against the Houston half-court set defense. They just didn't make shots, and it didn't work. So, Houston can play any way you want to play them. I just think that if this game comes anywhere near 9 points, I, for one, would have to be on the Memphis side and take the points.
Robbie, how many AAC teams do you think make it into the tournament?
Well, at 3 for sure, right? We know that Houston's going to get there. Cincinnati and Central Florida probably get there as well. And I think that Temple deserves to be there. So my guess would be 4. If Memphis wins this tournament, Drew, you could be staring at 5. Because if Temple beats Wichita State tonight, I think they're already in, but they should be locked in if they win tonight. And like I say, if Memphis were to run the table, I think you could possibly be looking at 5.
Man, that'd be a lot. I mean, I do think the AAC is underrated, but 5 teams, that'd be a lot for that conference. Not that they're not deserving. It's just, not necessarily a Power 5 conference. I've seen those commercials. They're only a Power 6 conference.
Yeah, and you know what? They'll get to use all the open available spots left to them by the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to look at it. Robbie, we got another matchup here. Rhode Island versus St. Bonaventure. And the Bonnies find themselves still alive, and Ken Palm's showing it 64-63 actually with the Bonnies on top. So that would give us a 127 total here, and just a -1 point spread. Obviously a competitive game, but who do you like to come out on top, Rhode Island versus the Bonnies?
Yeah, power rating shows St. Bonaventure to be -0.5. I will say this. A lot of A-10 coaches, maybe 2 games prior to the end of the regular season, were pretty outspoken in the same opinion that nobody really wanted to face Rhode Island if it came to that in this conference tournament. We hear that all the time. Nobody wants to face this team. Nobody wants to face that team. And it wasn't even as if Rhode Island was coming into the tournament scorching hot, and that's the reason why you didn't want to face them. The basic reason is Rhode Island's underachieved all season long. Their talent level should have had them being one of the 2 or 3 best teams in this particular conference. Instead, they flailed through the season, but they've gotten here, and behind Fats Russell, here they come, and it's going to be a difficult matchup for St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure, from a style perspective, wants to slow the game down. Mark Schmidt's team wants to be in the half court. They want to beat you defensively. Rhode Island, for the most part, is that same type of team. Their troubles, Drew, all season long have been shooting the basketball. Just one of the worst shooting teams in the A-10 all season. But when they make shots against the best defensive team in this league by far, VCU, as they did today, I think that shows that maybe they're peaking at the right time. After watching them the last 3-4 games of the season, I'd have to be in agreement with these A-10 coaches. Rhode Island has all the makings of a team that could take this thing the distance. The problem with them is, you can play them, but always in the back of your mind, you have to have the concern that they may lay an egg shooting the basketball because they've done it so many times this season. But right now, it's tough to use that theory because offensively they've been as good as it gets for Rhode Island this year. Their last 6 games, they've put up 72 points or better. I think that would be enough to beat St. Bonaventure. So for me, this is going to be a pretty strong look toward the Rhode Island side if the number comes in the vicinity that we're talking about. And I don't see why it wouldn't, to tell you the truth. So I think Rhode Island probably a way to look tomorrow.
Robbie, we got one more game, and guys, we got a coupon code for the podcast for Rob Veno's 7-day all access for just $69. You'll get the next 7 days of Robbie Veno's any play he releases for just $69, less than $10 a day, using Veno69 at checkout. That will include any NIT, CBI, any other small conference games Robbie releases next week as well. So that's 7-day all access with Robbie Veno, $50 off, brings it to just $69, and that coupon code is Veno69 at checkout. We got Auburn, Florida. That's the matchup, Robbie, in the SEC semifinal game, and it just finished the Auburn game, so Ken Palm's system has not calculated his numbers yet. However, if you have your power numbers ready, we'd love to hear them, and also your thoughts on how the game progresses.
Yeah, I show Auburn to be a 2-point favorite in this one, Drew. The early game, Florida LSU today, certainly one that I think in the minds of many, Florida actually stole. Not because of referee calls or anything, just snuck in and stole while LSU was busy releasing off the gas pedal. Florida was busy coming from behind and then stealing the game at the end, 76-72. A lot of mention on today's broadcast that perhaps LSU's faltering down the stretch today was attributed to the fact that they missed their head coach, Will Wade, some coaching decisions in question towards the end of this contest. But I'm not so sure that they just didn't maybe let off the gas a little bit. Let's not forget that Florida and LSU played some extremely close games all season long. So to see Florida win today is really no surprise. I think the surprise is the fact that LSU had such a huge start to the contest and then in the end couldn't hang on, and really in the last 15 seconds end up losing this game. So this should be a real good matchup. We've talked a lot about Bruce Pearl's team this year and how Bruce Pearl, as far back as, I don't know, we did a pod maybe 4 weeks ago, Drew, 4.5 weeks ago, where Bruce Pearl thought his team was turning a corner, where that was at the point of the season when they had gotten Austin Wiley, their center, back for a couple of games. They showed some flashes, then they'd go back and regress, and then they'd show some flashes. But now, to me, they seem as strong as ever. So for Auburn, this is probably a pretty good matchup. It's a guard-oriented matchup. Florida's very reliant on their backcourt leadership. Auburn the same. I think Auburn does a lot of things offensively far better than Florida does, and it will be a task, an extremely tall task for Florida to defend Auburn all over the floor. However, you know, the contradicting argument to Auburn here, Drew, if you wanted to come from the Florida side, would be, we've seen it this year, and you and I have talked about it this year. Teams that want to slow Auburn down, Auburn's had trouble with, and Florida certainly wants to slow Auburn down. So that will be a test for Auburn. Now, their opening game against Missouri was a slow-paced team. Auburn got that one up to 81-71. I don't know that Florida will just get up and go with Auburn the way they would want them to, but Auburn's going to have to find a way to create some pace in this game to benefit them. They played Florida one time earlier this season, back on February the 5th, so it's about a month, about 5 weeks ago, let's say. They win 76-62. Auburn's defense might be good enough to get this thing done. I kind of like that side in this contest if the game comes -2. Florida really elated today, and it's hard, Drew, to get into the heads of a coaching staff and kids who may believe that they locked up an NCAA tournament bid today. Florida showed a lot of excitement. The standard line in post-game interviews is, we're not thinking about it, it's on to the next game, and that's probably the case with Florida, but you never know. This could be a situation where they put everything into this game knowing they needed it to get in, and maybe they don't have as much focus or energy left for tomorrow. I think Auburn will bring it for sure, so maybe a little added angle there for the Auburn side.
Yeah, Robbie, I think you bring up a great point in terms of Auburn struggling against the teams that can slow them down. You know, we saw it earlier, mainly in that Ole Miss game. you started to notice it back then, where Auburn just didn't look good at all. They got blown out in that game, I believe, by 15-plus points. And the thing I've noticed with that is when they get slowed down and they don't look good, one, they get tore up, meaning it probably won't be an even competitive game at that point. But you got to be talented enough to do that. And I don't know that Florida is. For instance, if Auburn plays, Virginia or Texas Tech, that would be a terrible matchup for Auburn. And I would very much look to fade them. But I just don't know if Florida's talented enough, meaning, usually the more talented team controls the pace. And I'm not so sure that Florida's the more talented team, Robbie.
Well, I don't think they are either, Drew. I think there's, in my mind, there's little question about that. I'm not saying there's a huge gap talent-wise between the two, but I think power ratings all season long have indicated Auburn to be the better team, even when they were going through stretches where they weren't playing at their best or they were playing somewhat injured. Florida has had those stretches as well, so let's not make it sound like it's only good for one side. I'll say this, down the stretch here, maybe Auburn's learned a lesson. When they played Alabama 4 games ago, Avery Johnson and company, a team that I think had played 7 straight unders heading into that contest, they tried to slow Auburn down, and they were successful. The game only landed at 126 points, but Auburn won 66-60, to your point. The more talented team was able to overcome the tempo of the game. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Missouri under Cuonzo Martin, certainly a slow tempo team, one of the slowest in the nation, and Auburn was able to overcome that. They were the more talented team. We'll see if they can do the same tomorrow, because you can rest assured Florida will try to make this a half-court style dogfight for Auburn. It's really incumbent upon them to go out tomorrow and find little stretches in the game where they can grab rebounds and run and steal, 6-0 spurts wherever they can. Even if there's only a couple of them in the game, it might be enough to win the contest. And it'll be interesting to see where this total comes as well, because I'd expect Florida to want to really walk it up. If they get behind, Drew, do they continue to walk it up? That'll be something we'll have to consider as well.
Robbie, great stuff, man. Guys, we got the coupon code Veno69 for Robbie Veno's 7-day all access for just $69. That will get you every play he releases. And we got the small conference, or not the small conference, but the smaller tournaments up next week. Those are a great thing to bet as far as getting advantage on the odds makers. The main tournament coming up next Thursday will be the first day. Selection Sunday is this Sunday, alongside St. Patrick's Day. So it should be a really fun Sunday this weekend. Robbie, what are your plans this weekend, man?
Well, currently, I am. My wife is in New York City. In fact, as we're speaking here, Drew, I get a text. She's in a hotel with the A10. The A10 tournament is in Brooklyn, and she's apparently in a hotel filled with A10 basketball players. And she just texted me to let me know that the place is absolutely loaded with tall kids and some in VCU warm-ups. But I assured her the VCU kids will be going home at least. But there's some other teams sticking around. For me, the weekend will be loaded with basketball, AAF football. Let's not forget that, guys. AAF football on tap for this weekend as well. Selection Sunday. Obviously, we'll all be in preparation for that so that we can have I figure we'll be doing a Monday podcast after the selections are made. So we'll have 4 tournaments to talk about on Monday morning, Drew, and certainly we'll stay attached to it all weekend long. On to the night session for Friday night college tournament hoops.
You bring it up, Monday podcast, Robbie. If you're open, let's do it. Let's do it somewhat early if you can. What time works for you on Monday?
Yeah. Because when these tournament matchups come out, you've texted me enough. They're always late nights for me. So I'll be certainly sorting out notes and whatnot deep into the night. And we can go early. I think that anything, 10:30 a.m., be well prepared to be able to go out there and put on a nice podcast for folks where these tournaments are concerned. It's a lot to get into perspective that quickly, but we obviously will do our best to go ahead and steer you in the right direction, because I know everybody out there is in some type of office pool or something, and they want to know right away who we should be betting. So we'll try to temper, Drew, the expectations that will be placed upon every single mid-major team come Sunday night as the national media, the television media, gets to chew at this tournament first. And every year it seems you watch it and they advise everybody that every single mid-major tournament, they're on them, they're going to win, they're going to win. So we'll try to temper it a little bit and give you the best advice we can on how to go with your office pools. All
right, Robbie. And follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports, myself at Drew Martin Betts. Please let us know what you want to hear on the podcast. Also, any thoughts, betting questions, lifestyle questions, whatever you want to throw at us. We'll be happy to answer them. And Monday, we'll give ourselves a little bit of buffer time. We'll have it out by, 2 o'clock Eastern. You'll have the NCAA tournament first look podcast, maybe a sleeper, a team to fade and team to win it, and who we're liking in the first round, all that for Monday's podcast. Other than that, guys, thank you for listening. Coupon code VENO69 for $69. You get his 7-day all access, less than $10 a play. Have a fun, safe weekend, and best of luck with your bets. We'll talk on Monday.
This is it. After years I've been rolled up within an inch of my life, I'm free!
Receipts have a mind of their own. Go paperless and manage your travel expenses online with My Taxi Business. Make the smarter choice at mytaxi.com.
Join us in your Ladbroke shops for the best offers for Cheltenham 2019. Every day of the Cheltenham Festival, we're offering best odds guaranteed on your multiple bets from 9 a.m. right up until the first race at 1:30. That means if the price drifts, you'll be paid out at the bigger odds. Ladbrokes, your home of the best value for the Cheltenham Festival 2019. Over 18s, T's and C's apply.